Hi guys! Thanks for joining me for video 4. This has been a really awesome journey with you, and I'm so glad that people are responding to the videos. I did send out a poll yesterday and I did receive some responses about what you would like to see for November, and so far it's about 50-50 split down the middle between people who would like to receive 1 kit per week, so 4 kits for the month without the videos. And then I heard from some people that said that they would like to get the 2 kits choice out of 4 plus the videos. So what I think I'm going to do is still do a weekly video that's just going to go up on YouTube and will be for anyone to see, but they'll be similar to what I've been doing now. Roughly a half hour and just going in depth into the Junk Journals 101, and then send out 1 kit per week. And I'm also going to be doing some polls for the people with memberships for what types of themes you would like to see in the kits. The ones that I have working right now, I have a fairy tale themed one. Fairy tales, just a general fairy tale vintage theme, and then I have a vintage Christmas one coming out very soon. So I have like lined up certain themes, and I will start sending out emails about which ones are most to you guys' preference, and then I will work on those kits according to what your preference is. So anyway, for this video, I'm going to be doing a lot of stamping. There's going to be some die cutting, and I just wanted to show you some of the dies that I ended up using in this journal. So this Gothic Fairy Tale journal, I really wanted a journal that was not just spooky. I wanted it to be kind of whimsical and fun too, not just all dark and gloomy. So like for instance, this to me, you know, depending on which way you color the die, can be a really pretty light-hearted fairy tale, or it could be, you know, sort of a more dark and spooky fairy tale. So this is one of the dies. All of these, except for this one, are actually from AliExpress, and I believe I mentioned AliExpress in the previous video, so you can get stamps and dies and other scrapbooking crafts on there for way cheaper than you would pay in the US. If you look up AliExpress craft hauls on YouTube, you'll find a lot of videos where people share what they have bought and how much they paid. So for instance, this gate, which is now a little bit warped because I put it through the die cut machine the wrong way, but it still works. It's just warped. This was maybe about $2, so that just kind of gives you an example. This one might have been, you know, $1.50. So, and they're really nice dies. I mean, I haven't had trouble with them. They seem to work as well as the US ones. So, I wanted to talk briefly about inks as well, and then I will show you a few of the stamps that I end up using in the journal. So when you're inking, I'm going to get out a few of them here. So Distress Ink and Distress Oxide are both water reactive, so they are not permanent. You can make them permanent with one of the Ranger products. I believe it's the micro glaze. I don't have it, so I can't really say one way or the other how well it works. It seems to work well on video, the ones that I've seen. So if you are interested in making them permanent, you absolutely can. So these are not permanent unless you like glaze over them with something. The archival ink is permanent and waterproof. So the Memento Luxe is considered a pigment ink, and that basically means that it will take longer to dry, and it's good for embossing just like the Distress line. This one I just picked up. Now the Memento Luxe is different from some of your other Memento inks, so just make sure if you're looking for the pigment one that's going to stay wetter, longer for embossing, you look for Luxe, and it says for mixed media on this particular one. This is a really pretty color. I haven't used it too much yet, but it is definitely awesome for embossing. And then this little guy I got in a stack of 4 different colors. I've heard these called teardrops and cat's eye type products, and they're just the little mini inkers. There are a couple different companies that make these. Color Box is one. This is Versa Magic, and they call it a multi-surface chalk ink. This one is in Oasis Green. So chalk ink is the fastest to dry, just ahead of dye ink. And I usually get chalk inks to go on dark surfaces because they really pop out nicely on like a black background. And let me just show you quickly something that I learned, and it helped me so much in terms of figuring out which ink to use. I watched a YouTube video, it had to have been probably 5 years ago, and ever since it has helped me figure out which ink is best for what you're trying to use it for. So I wish I could remember which video it was and I could direct you to it, but basically it goes in alphabetical order with the ink. So there's C for chalk, there's D for dye, and there's P for pigment. So chalk, excuse me, and the reason that the alphabetical part is important is it helps you remember that C is the first to dry. So it would be the first one to show up in the alphabet. And then D for dye, second to dry. But these two are usually not good for embossing. Okay, and then pigment, the last one, longest to dry, good for embossing. So I hope that's helpful. The ABC part of it really helped me. It's stuck in my brain ever since, and so hopefully that is helpful in terms of choosing inks. One more that you might run across is this one's called Watermark Resist, but I mostly just use it for embossing. This is really similar to embossing ink. So it's a clear ink. You can use virtually any stamp on it and then go ahead and put your embossing powder on top and heat set it and have it embossed. I haven't tried it as a watermark resist, but I imagine since it's from the Ranger line that you could stamp with this, let it dry, and then any ink that you put on top of it is going to, this will repel it. So you'll have that resist, and you know, whatever your stamp is going to make that ink kind of fall off of it. So there's a little walkthrough, and now I'll show you some stamps. One of them that I ended up using quite a bit of are these frame stamps because they look very Victorian and they can definitely go kind of a gothic direction. These are by Hampton Art. I believe I got these at Tuesday Morning. I've had them a while. So this could be used in a variety of different vintage themes. Next up, I have this Inkadinkadoo stamp. This is from Tuesday Morning, and as you can see, any of the packaging that has designs on it, you can always cut these out and make little embellishments. So I I usually will go to Tuesday Morning at least a couple of times a month. They have pretty good deals on stamps. They tend to carry a lot of Ranger stuff too, so Tim Holtz stamps, Diane Reevely, things like that. And since I'm going to be working on a Gothic fairy tale theme for this particular video, I thought this would work well with that Gothic look. And these stamps though could be used in a Victorian journal, lots of different vintage themes. I think it would work in Alice in Wonderland as well. So I definitely try to buy stamps that will work in more than one vintage theme. And then next up I have this set of 4 stamps. These are ATC stamps, so these are for artist trading cards. And what's special about artist trading cards, they are used sometimes in junk journals. I've seen them in mini albums, and they also are a big thing in the mixed media world. So the thing with artist trading cards is that they are always 2.5 across by 3.5 inches. And these stamps, which are also from AliExpress, have a ready-made background and grungy frame, and they all have different designs, so you could very easily stamp these onto cards that you cut out of cardstock in that size, and you would have a ready-made journaling card that would have this area for journaling, and you can also decorate an area that on an actual page that isn't cut out. Like if you wanted to make a journaling spot on a page such as this, you can tuck the artist trading card into an envelope or that library pocket type that you see in junk journals. So these are another one that will be getting a lot of use. And then text stamps are another thing that I like to collect. These were $2.99, as you can see. I believe these were also Tuesday Morning. And what's nice about foam stamps is that you can use paint with them as well. You can use paint with rubber stamps too. It just doesn't usually come out as well. What I like about using paint with the foam stamps is you can get a lot of really cool different effects So this technique with stamping is inspired by shifter stencils, which are really popular right now. And you basically take one stamp and stamp it in one color. So I first use some peeled paint, Distress Oxide, which is a green color. And then you're going to line up the stamp a little bit offset of the first one. Just a tiny bit offset, and use a color that is pretty different from the first one. So if you use green to start with, I'm going to use purple here. You could use red, brown, something that's going to stand out. Black would work too, would stand out from the green. And for this I use some Memento ink in, I believe it's Paris Dusk, which is sort of a dark purple blue color. And what you get is almost a 3D effect. So this is similar to sort of those optical illusions. If you've ever been to Disneyland and been to the Haunted Mansion, you might remember that this is how they get a sort of ghostly look. And you could do this with a variety of different stamps, especially text stamps or anything with a lot of detail. And you just go ahead and stamp the one image once and then offset it for the second round of stamping. And like I said, just pick a good contrasting color for that second stamping, and it's a really easy technique to get almost an optical illusion, and it's just a little something different to do in your junk journal. So now I'm using some paper stencils and the little distressing blending tool with some distress oxide, and I'm going to stencil in onto the paper. And I like how it gives that cool faded effect. And now I'm doing the same thing with a leafy stencil that kind of makes me think of fall, so I thought it would go well with this theme. And for this part, I decided to do something a little bit funky. I used a rose stencil and decided to use a bunch of different distress oxide colors and make a rose background. This is really fun to do, and you can get a pretty quick background doing this just using a little stencil. So I just use different colors that go along with a fall theme, but you could really use any stencil for this. And then I thought it would add some dimension to put some black dye ink and mix it in with the color. And since I'm using the same blending tool, it just slowly becomes black because it still had some of the old ink left in it. And so I just looked for any open areas that were left, and especially around the borders, to get that darker color in. Then I go ahead and give it a shot with the heat gun to make sure it's set. And of course, since most of it is distress, it will still be water reactive. And I even tried pressing a baby wipe on there to make it react a little bit. So these are some Tim Holtz foam stamps. He has a few collections of these in different types of lettering, and this one's called Gothic. And since foam stamps are good for paint, I thought it would give a neat, different effect to use some black paint and stamp out Haunted. So I just have my little mini brayer there, but you could brush it on with a paintbrush. You could use a credit card or a hotel room key to spread the paint on. I just have found this to be a really good, clean, neat way to spread some paint on fast. And as you can see, it gives a different effect than the ink. It's a little bit more blobby, I guess you could say, but it's also very dark, and I thought it went well with Halloween. So I did the same thing for a large tag and stamped it out Haunts. So I thought I would show you working with the pigment ink that's white against a black background, and then show you some of the cool effects you can get with the distressed oxides against a black background. And we talked about the ATC sized cards before. These are 3 that I just made in kind of a mixed media style with distressed oxides and this white ink. So I got this set of ATC cards that are already pre-cut. These are from Prima and they will fit these little grungy stamps that I showed you earlier and make some really cool cards that we can stick in the journal. So I'm going to get out my stamp platform and some more of the distress oxides and go for it. So now that we finished up stamping for now, I wanted to do some die cutting, and in the same way that I do the stamping in assembly line, I like to do the die cutting the same way, so that I bring out my die cutting machine once, all of my dies, and just do a whirl of dies. So I'm going to start out looking through this stack of paper that is the Recollections brand from Michaels. This is Halloween, and it has these really cool, almost like fortune or tarot looking large cards, and they have they're double-sided and they are debossed. So like all of these gold elements are debossed. So there are 3 of each design, which is nice, so that if I do end up cutting up some of the designs, I don't have to worry that that's my only one. I'll still have some left over. So here's one with the star. This one's really cool, the celestial theme. There's one with a key, skeleton hand, spooky snake, a candelabra. I always love these Victorian looking candelabras. Or I guess that's a chandelier. And then here's the, it looks like the same celestial pattern but in black with white designs. Here's a snake and knife. So as I'm looking through these, I might end up die cutting and I might end up fussy cutting some of these out. There's a really cool gate with swords. So for my first one, I picked out the Winged Man, and I think he would make a really cool, if you were to fussy cut out his wings and the skeleton part. now I took out some of the die cut papers and I use a toothbrush, just a new toothbrush that's never been used and has nice stiff bristles to get out all those little extra paper bits. And of course there are lots of tools that you can buy that help you get the paper out, but this seems to work just as well as the Spellbinders tool that I have, and it's a lot cheaper option, and if it does start to go south, you can always just grab a new toothbrush. So this set of 3 dies is also from Tim Holtz, and it has a skull and crossbones, and then sort of a cross design and another type of fall looking design that I think could go for lots of different themes actually, other than the skull and crossbones. So for the last part of the video, I hope my cats let me get through this last part of the video. I just wanted to show you some of the stamping and die cutting as it turned out in the journal. I did a full flip through of this journal on YouTube, but I just wanted to show you some of the pages that I used as tuck spots. So this is that same cross die cut that's used as a tuck spot, and down here is the moon die cut. Here you might remember the stenciling. Here's another of the die cuts. So these are really fun to use to glue in and use as tuck spots. You might recognize one of the ATC cards, and these can be used with gel pens, especially the Sakura jelly pens. They show up really well on this. Any of the opaque inks will show up really well on black, and you can write and use these as journaling cards. There's the Winged Man tarot card, the Haunts tag, another of the die cuts used as a tuck spot. Here's the skull and crossbones. So I just die cut out a whole bunch of these. Here's some of the stamping that I did. This is actually a rub-on that I got in a set. Some more of the ATCs and the same moon. So that's just an example of the stamping and some of the fun stuff that you can do with the embossing and make a really cool journal. So I really hope you guys enjoyed watching this. I really enjoyed making it for you and would love to hear any suggestions, questions, comments, anything you'd like to see in a future video. And I will see you next week. Okay, thanks so much. Bye-bye.